Do you know what the biggest advantage of having another opportunity or a second chance given to you? I don't know what the answer is for you, but for me, it's the ability to be able to see things through a different lens. I'm able to look back at so many things that broke me, and I can see exactly how it shaped me for the version I am now. My name is Cassandra. I'm a suicide survivor. I have been now for 5 years, and it's crazy how life will take a turn in a way that you'd never imagine. A lot of us think that we have our journeys mapped out. We believe if we do a certain thing or act a certain way that we'll get a certain, consequence or reward behind it. But for me, I've always emulated every environment I've been around. I've never just been able to live my true self. And with that being said, I mean my true self even in the hurt stages, I've never been able to just be happy being me, happy with the scars, happy with the accomplishments. I've just never been happy being me, but I've also never just known to have any emotions about me even. I come from a very null and dull, emotionless type of environment. We don't say I love you to each other. We don't have family meals together. We don't see each other for the holidays. We don't check in on each other daily. We don't, in my opinion, even know each other. And I'm speaking more so for my immediate family, because my family overall, on both my maternal and paternal side, are very loving in general. They do show love. If I say I love you, they'll say they love me back. But as far as the family that I was raised up with and under that one roof, it definitely hits different. So what I'm getting at, and the point that I would like to make, is that it's important to understand who you are and to truly be comfortable with your culture. When you know who you are, it's okay for you to be able to tame it in certain environments when necessary versus shutting it down or changing yourself to fit into that environment. So I want to go back to the beginning of my story where I just simply say, one of the greatest opportunities or the advantages of having a second chance at life is seeing things through a different lens for me. I want to specifically share one story where I felt like my culture was compromised, and I believe it was the beginning of my demise as far as me losing my mind. I'm going to take you back to a place where it was a very, very rough time in my life. I had a lot of transitions going on and a lot of questions that went unanswered because I didn't know even who to go to or who to speak to about the emotions and the feelings and thoughts I was having. Again, I come from a very emotionless environment, and there's really no one to talk to when you feel the way I was feeling. So, anyway, I remember there was a time in my life where I had an opportunity to continue to be in a place where I was truly happy, enjoyed everything that brought me pleasure to being in that particular environment, to making a decision to go into another career, a different field. I thought I was going to transition into something better because it seemed like the title even elevated, my talents and who I was. So I took the bait at leaving my career that I loved and I thoroughly enjoyed for an opportunity to have a more elite title and, with that, better pay. So I remember preparing for this interview and get my clothes ready and Normally, I'm a procrastinator, so this particular instance, I decided to go ahead and iron my clothes and just, really get ready for this interview I was going to prepare for. What happened the next morning should have been my first red flag that I did not need to compromise my culture for a coin. So, I get up the next morning, I get out of bed, and I turn on my light switch, and there's no power. At this particular time, I was in a relationship where I was married, and I was at the very tail end of that marriage. A lot of those reasons I had gotten to that point was for the very reason that my lights were off the morning of this very important interview. So I proceeded to get dressed by my phone in the dark, and I continued on with my day. I went into that interview, and I remember meeting this woman who I felt that I did not quite impress, but maybe, just maybe because of my background and the unique jobs I've had in the past, just kind of fit the bill that, she was looking for. And I ended up getting hired at this position, and essentially, I loved what I did. I loved learning a different trade with the same skills I've had in the past. I loved just being able to interact with a different type of people. And I loved having a certain genuine knowledge about my position that others on my team did not have. What I did not love was having to trade my culture. My culture, not my race, my culture. I am small town southern bred. I am in the southern part of the U.S. I am of African heritage. I am also of many lost heritage because of my ancestry that ties in slavery, or enslavement, slavery. So I, only know what the environment I was raised in. Not trying to blame anybody or not trying to make excuses, but my environment did not allow me to have some of the more cultured things that others had the opportunities to have as children. Like, I have never been to Disney World, my first time ever getting on a plane was because I was in college at Savannah State, and I was on a health, like a youth or young adult health team, and we got a chance to fly to DC. That was my very first time flying on a plane, in college. I also come from a very generational broken family, so first time I ever been to a wedding was actually with my very first boyfriend, who I did not have till I was almost 18. And yeah, so like I'm probably naming some silly stuff to some, but these are things that people kind of need, I believe, along the way in life to help culture them, to help bring diversity to their life, so they can understand, what certain things are and why we do certain things in life. And when you don't have those tools, or when you aren't prepared to socially interact with the world, then you kind of get left behind, and then it does not help that you kind of fall through the cracks, as I did, I believe anyway, and you become older. So then when you don't know certain things, the response is usually, you too old to not know this, or there's no excuse for you not to know this. But again, when you just don't know, you just don't know. So anyway, took this job, I end up sacrificing my culture, and I loved what I did essentially. But then things started happening. I kind of found out on the back end that the person who hired me kind of planted seeds of characteristics of me that were passed around to different people. So people looked at me differently without me even knowing it, and here I am shucking and jiving for a job because I'm super excited about having this position, right, with this elite title, right, with this better pay, right, being in an office setting, a small team, being on a team that is kind of being like innovators in the field that they were working in, so it was really awesome to be part of that potential initial growth, actually. But here I am, walking on eggshells, trying not to be loud, trying not to laugh too loud, trying not to, get too comfortable with the people who I had to interact with, as I would do as a Southerner. I call everybody honey, sugar baby. But in this particular job, I could not speak to people that way. And it was really hard for me to kind of shift my culture as a Southerner. And then, of course, there were things where I had to kind of code switch, being a Black person. It was very hard to not want to talk about certain things, to interact with people in your environment that you're working around more hours than you are with your family, especially about, topics that matter, that impact our lives, without feeling out of place, especially politically. There were a lot of in your face, this is what we support and what we believe in, but there wasn't really a lot of openness to, well, here's what we like and here's what we're bringing to the table, but what do you think? There was almost like an inclusion on what to believe in, as far as, political power. I saw a lot of events and rallies and little gatherings for people who did not have the same concepts or mentalities as me. But the people who worked on the back end, they were the ones who primarily looked like me. And, they just kind of got thrown into a political environment that was kind of one-sided, and not saying anything against the company or anything like that. But again, I had to walk on eggshells about my culture, my beliefs, especially political point of views and things of that nature. And again, no complaints on the company. These are just things that just started kind of etching at my mental health, because I had to suppress who I was just so I can, get by in that environment. And no one ever came up to me and said, hey, you better not act less country or less Black. It was just strongly insinuated with the, high raised eyebrows or the whispers behind the back. And, a couple of points I'm going to make before I kind of wrap this up is to say that, these are the things that were kind of detrimental to my downfall of me breaking. A couple of the things I remember in this particular job is that it never mattered what I did or did not do. I was always the probable cause of the problem because of what was said and had been said about me behind my back. There was a situation a couple of times where some things happened at my job, and some serious allegations kind of went around the department about some confidential information about the company that had been leaked. And for whatever reason, the person who was responsible for that conversation automatically said that I was the one who relayed her the inside information. And I had no idea when we had a meeting the very next day with the boss, the president of my particular company, that the meeting to discuss that it is very important not to violate company, or compromise company privacy. I had no idea that man was looking at me in my face because he thought I was the one who did it. And that went on for quite some time. I remember going into the break room and not being spoken to by people who normally greet me, who I normally have a great time and enjoy talking to. But all of a sudden, I'm getting a cold shoulder. And then all of a sudden, this went on for a few days. But then all of a sudden, it was kind of like an overexertion of emotions were kind of put on me, like, hey, how are you today? And I was like, now this is weird because they weren't talking to me just a few days prior, but here we are now, we're speaking again. And I never thought anything of it until much later on, when I found out all of the pieces of the puzzle and found out what really went on behind the scene, and then I put two and two together and I realized this is why that meeting was held. This is why I had the cold shoulders. This is why all of a sudden everybody came back to me and was being really nice. But here's where it hit me at the hardest. Because I can understand mistakes happen. I can understand misunderstandings. I don't have no problem with that. But no one ever came to me and apologized to me. They just continued to move on as if nothing had happened to me, as if I was not a target. And they were not humble enough to even apologize for putting that type of stress on my name. And I know it was because of the person who hired me at the time, making me out to be this bad villain. And again, you have to work in that type of environment and you carry that stress for some time. And I put up with this for a few years. And that one really was a hard one for me. And then another time was when I was pregnant. I was super excited about being pregnant. I was a geriatric mom, high risk. I also had twins. So I already had complications with previous pregnancies that were not successful. So this particular pregnancy was very important to me. And I really wanted to do everything I could to make sure I could actually give birth this time. I mean, now at this point, I'm in my late 30s, time is ticking. This is my opportunity. So a lot of stress was happening at work, but I tried my best to kind of suppress it by making sure that I put all of my emotions aside, even these hormonal, high raging emotions I'm having while being pregnant. I put everything aside and tried to do something to bring unity to the office. And at this particular time, this is a different event and with a different person. There was some tension in the office between myself and another young lady. For whatever reason, I have no idea, but the issues always seem to fall on me and not her. And again, I don't have no problem with that because at the end of the day, I really don't care. And I did not care about, trying to make friends per se. I was comfortable with the people who I dealt with and I did not care about making any other friends. So I didn't really care about not being included in her circle. I just didn't like the bullying that came with it because they were on her team. So anyway, I created this event to try to bring unity to the office so it can be a less stressful environment. I made sure that even at the time that we were not speaking to each other, that particular coworker, I made sure everybody got a direct message or a group message saying, hey, I got some things going on back here. Y'all are welcome to come join me. Everyone is welcome. Everyone, right? So I see people walking by my desk where everything is set up. And I'm, hey, you're welcome to have this. You're welcome to have that. People are joining in. Well, some of the higher ups came by looking at my display, didn't say anything to me. And when I offered, oh, no, I don't want any. Okay, well, again, I was like, okay, cool, no problem. I wasn't looking for any credits to say, hey, look what I've done. I just simply wanted to bring some peace. I just wanted to show an effort. I just wanted them to just leave me alone, really. But anyway, we move on. The day progresses. I later find out that the reason why I was getting the cold shoulders that time was because that particular coworker I had issues with previously, and I won't even say currently because she wasn't even a thought to me at that time, ran to their offices when I had everything set up and made it seem as if I invited everyone but her. And that went on for the entire day without anyone bringing me into an office or speaking to me or asking me, is that what happened? It wasn't until one coworker who was almost caught up in between these issues and problems, she saw my side, but I understood her position because she had a family to take care of, so she really couldn't say much or speak on me. But she stood up that particular day and said, let me tell you something. Cassandra made sure she told everybody what was going on. You can even check the records because I made sure I sent it out through the company DM system that we had. I still never received an apology. No one ever checked on me. No one ever asked me, are you okay? The stress that I endured in that position when I compromised my culture for coins led me down a path where I essentially just asked myself and questioned myself, like, why am I not good enough? I have great rapport with the clientele that we service. I am coming up with great innovative ways to make sure that we have more happiness in the workplace. I'm trying really hard to just put aside even my own personal issues. Again, the day I interviewed on this job, my lights were off. I had to get dressed in the dark. And I never got any better on my personal side after that. Everything continued to just kind of roll downhill when I was going through my separation, just moving on to new spaces, meeting different people. I went through a lot on the back end that I tried really hard not to bring into my job. However, my job and my personal life started to become blended together, and it became overwhelming to a point where I nearly wanted to take it all. And I almost did. But for whatever reason, I went back to that same particular job, and I just said enough was enough. I did not want to be there anymore, and I said those words exactly like that I did not want to be there anymore. And had it not been for one person asking me, had it not been for that person asking me more specifically, what do you mean you don't want to be here anymore? And push me to say I didn't want to be on this earth, because I easily was at work, right? I broke down mentally at work. I just said I didn't want to be here anymore. That could have easily been like, okay, Cassandra's having another crazy day, because of course this is what I've been labeled as at this point, because I know that y'all are talking about me in the background. I know that y'all don't like me. I know that y'all are going to still believe them over me. Yet I have to come into this place and be happy and serve people, and it got the best of me. So my performance just kind of failed towards the end. I was late every day. I did not care about coming back late from breakout. It was horrible and feeling miserable there. So had it not been for that one person to ask me specifically what I meant by I didn't want to be there anymore, I would have went home and executed my plans and did what I wanted to do successfully. So my plans were kind of intercepted at that time because someone asked one further question than what I'm normally used to receiving, because people just brush me off. I get to this point often in life where people just kind of love me for who I am and my personality initially. They bring me on and use me up, and then I don't realize that's what they're doing because I'm looking for love however I can get it. So once I'm wrung out and I'm dry and I'm left there and I realize that's what I'm doing, I'll go through this same cycle over and over again. It's the same way in my past relationships. It's the same way in my past relationships, not just with my spouses or people I've dealt with in the past on a relationship level, a personal relationship level, but I mean even my siblings, my mother, my father, my other family members, the aunties, uncles, cousins. This is why I go off and I disappear for years, and well, I would say days, weeks, years at a time. I jump straight to years because I've done that before. I get so overwhelmed and feel so dried up that I have to go. And when I go, I run. I run. This time I was tired of running because now I realize that this is just a cycle I'm in. Fast forward to today. Even though I'm a 5-year survivor of suicide, I did not realize my calling to be an advocate for mental health and suicide awareness and prevention until just 8 months ago. February 18th of this year is when I really got a slap in the face by God and simply was brought to light on what could have been my life. It's almost like I had one of those what's that movie with the Scrooge by Humbug, the Christmas Carol, I believe. I don't know if I'm wrong on that. Please forgive me. It's late, and I am trying to speak on this as God just is allowing my tongue to speak on it. But anyway, I kind of felt like Ebenezer Scrooge this year. I feel like For the first time ever, I was able to stand there and witness my past. And I was able to see the aftermath of what could have happened in 4 different scenarios. Because since February 18th of this year, I have directly been involved to this date, which is now December 28th, with 4 suicides that I had some type of connection to. And each one of them, God was able to allow me to see what my outcome could have been. So it's almost crazy that here we are at the end of this, the holiday season, Christmas, it's now wrapped up. We're about to go into a new year, and I thank God for allowing me to see my year in review, like physically and literally. I was able to see what death looked like, because the very first suicide, I actually was the one who walked in and saw the young man in his deceased state after his mother initially saw him. So I had never seen death physically before, and apparently it didn't even faze me, because I went home that very same day and fed my family and went to sleep and didn't even realize anything had happened until the next day when I was being checked on. That was a reality check for me. Like, God, why am I not responding to these things that would normally freak people out? Because just 2 weeks prior to that, I had lost someone I loved dearly. That I could not have even made it this far had it not been for her guidance and leadership, because of the family that she raised. 3 generations of women who just covered and protected me in a way like I like no other. And I received the news of her passing, and I was numb, and I carried on, and I pretended like I didn't hear it, basically. And eventually, how I do, as I always do, I started to believe it, and I carried on with my life, and I moved forward. I did not want to cry. There was no need for me to cry, right? You not gone. So, all right, I'm going to call back in a little bit, and we're going to talk, and that's fine. But this time, this loss, I actually saw this death. And it wasn't until nearly 2 to 3 days later that I realized what was happening. And I also realized how messed up I was, because I had no emotions seeing that young man in the same state that could have been me. I started to sit down, and I really started to say, God, I thank you, because I get everything now. I get everything, because I was allowed to see the full picture. I held on because somebody asked one extra question. I held on and I pushed, because I just did not understand why I was not successful. Even after my second suicide attempt, once I got out the first time out of the mental institution, because of course that's what happened naturally when you admit that you want to kill yourself, right? They send you off to a place and put you somewhere, and these doctors tell you, well, this is what's going on with you, and here are some things that you need to do. Now, boom, you be gone, go find the resources on the street, because that's what happened to me. When I was institutionalized in a mental hospital or a mental rehabilitation center, however they want you to phrase it, I was diagnosed with the mental illnesses that they were able to get out of me. And I was told, here are some, classes that you need to attend while you're here. It just basically looks better and will allow you to be released early. So once I learned that system, I did everything that I needed to do to get home. I was not concerned about trying to get healed or be better at that particular time. I just wanted out of there. But when I returned home, there was still a lot of questions, a lot of issues, a lot of problems. I did not understand who this new person was, and I was not prepared to even find out who it was. So that led me to attempting to take my life a second time. But after that second time, something did something to me, and I realized I got to look at this thing from the outside looking in, because I'm looking at everything through my eyes still in a new life. And it still didn't make sense to me. So I had to pull myself up out of it, and I had to go into complete isolation. And lately, a lot of conversations I've been having have been speaking on that same thing, complete isolation. And I thank God once again for allowing me to not only see it, but hear that from Him. So again, compromising my culture, losing my identity, not really speaking up on what hurt me in my past so I can find the correct help to heal me sooner. All of that has led to who I am and what I am today. There's so many other things that I can be today, including dead, but I'm not. Even the circumstances I'm living even currently, I understand now that it's just temporary. Because I've lived through some things in my past. But yet I somehow managed to make it. Even when I tried to get in my own way, I still managed to make it. And this is why it's so important to just remain true to who you are. You can be that country girl. You can be that black person who is just simply proud of their culture. There's nothing wrong with screaming that you black and you proud. Because this whitewashing of who we are is exactly why we are just trying to take ourselves up out of here. We no longer identify with who our roots are, and we're trying to be who they want us to be, and that's just not how we are made. And nothing I ever shall say or speak is to incite any type of hatred or any type of animosity towards any other groups. It's just simply this from my lips and from my experiences of what happened to me as a black woman in America who also has Southern heritage, which is already proven on the national level. You know, the Southern states have lower lower educational rates, higher poverty rates, you know what I'm saying? So we talking about, you know, systematic issues, social issues, and epigenetics. We talking about things that I'm still carrying from, you know, generations back. We're just speaking about it as a whole from my lips of what has happened to me and what has gotten to me to this point. And I have definitely boiled it all down to my mental health matters. My culture speaks volumes because it is what and who makes me. I no longer want to stand in the shadows of anyone else. I just want to be proud of who I am, uniquely who I am. And I just want to be a fine example and contribute to everything that I associate with, whether it's a Southerner, whether it's a black person, whether it is a woman, whether it's a single mother, whether it is, you know, whatever it is, a crazy person, if you may say, since I am, you know, officially diagnosed with certain, mental illnesses. I don't care what it may seem like to you. I just understand now that because I have more confidence in who I am, I know exactly who I'm meant to be. And with that, I'm going to bid you farewell until next time, at least until my thoughts get the best of me and I'm able to pick up this mic to put it down so someone else can hear them as well. Have a good one.